Welcome to Learnpedia. Score more and rank better in JEE and NEET. Let's see if you can answer this actual JEE question. If you think you got the answer, then post it in the comment section below. To know the best way to answer this question, continue watching this video.
Froth flotation process. This is one of the most important ones, particularly used in the case of sulphide ores. But what is the basic principle involved in this? This is based on difference in wetting characteristics. The sulphide ore particles get wetted by an oil layer. What do you mean by get wetted? They readily go into oil layer, while the particles of impurities readily go into water layer. Thereby we say particles of impurities get wetted by water layer. So this difference in wetting characteristics is used in separating the particles of ore from the particles of impurities. So this process is generally carried out in a flotation cell. So here is the flotation cell, which consists of a large rectangular iron tank in which the fine powdered form of the ore is placed first, to which water is added to make a suspension or slurry. That is fine powder form of the ore plus water. To this suspension, three different types of substances are added. One, the cheap oil like pine oil or eucalyptus oil, so that there will be two layers. One is oil layer, the other one is aqueous layer because water is there. And the other type of substances that are added is little amount of soap or detergent. And the other substances called collectors, xanthates like ethyl xanthate or potassium ethyl xanthate. Then what is the role of these xanthates like ethyl xanthate or potassium ethyl xanthate? These are the substances which enhance the non-wettability of the ore particles. And also the substances like cresols and aniline. This is added as froth-stabilizers, which stabilize the froth, and thereby the word froth-stabilizers. So we are adding four different types of substances to what? The suspension. So the fine powder form of the ore which is taken in this, to which some amount of the water is added and made into suspension. A small amount of eucalyptus or pine oil is added, where the sulphide ore particles usually get wetted by an oil layer, while the particles of impurities get wetted by water layer. In other words, the particles of impurities go into aqueous layer. And to see that the wettability of the ore particles is increased, we add xanthates and little soap or detergent is added so that a readily froth is formed, and this cresols and aniline for stabilizing the froth. So this whole mass which is there in the flotation cell is agitated by passing the compressed air, so that it is stirred very well, during which as the particles of ore enter into oil layer, and with the help of soap or detergent a froth will be formed and they will move on to the surface, while the particles of impurities which go into water layer, which becomes heavier, will come down and get settled at the bottom of the container. So this is all gangue particles that will get settled at the bottom. Whereas whatever you see here in the form of the froth that is formed, that is coming on to the surface. And this froth containing the sulphide particles will be allowed to move into the adjoining tank and collected separately. So that's it's written froth bubbles carrying the sulphide ore particles, whereas this is the gangue, and this froth carrying the ore particles, sulphide ore particles, will now be separated, allowed to move into the adjoining tank where the particles of sulphide get settled. That's how impurities are separated from sulphide ore particle, by using Froth flotation process, which is based on the difference in wetting characteristics of particles of sulphide ore and particles of impurities. And some of the sulphide ores which are concentrated by this froth flotation process are, one is zinc sulphide, zinc blende, copper pyrites. But what is this copper pyrites? CuFeS2. And lead sulphide, PbS, galena, and cinnabar, mercuric sulphide are some of the examples of sulphides which can be concentrated by froth flotation process. But the problem comes when the ore itself consists of 2 or more than 2 sulphide ores. Then what we will do? So if the mineral to be concentrated consists of sulphides of 2 metals, then by adjusting the concentration of water to oil, it is often possible to separate one sulphide from the other. That is by adjusting proportion of oil to water. This is one way by means of which one can be separated from the other. And the other method, additional reagents are added, and these additional reagents called depressants are used to prevent one type of sulphide ore particles from forming the froth with air bubbles. So the second way is by adding additional reagents, and these are sometimes called depressants. And what is the role of these depressants? Depressants are used to prevent one type of sulphide ore particles from forming the froth with air bubbles. For example, sodium cyanide is a well-known example of a depressant. And this depressant sodium cyanide is used to separate lead sulphide ore from zinc sulphide. Suppose we have a mixture of lead sulphide and zinc sulphide, both of which are sulphide ores. So we add this sodium cyanide which acts as a depressant. Now this depressant added has got the property of reacting with zinc sulphide and form a soluble complex Na2ZnCN4, and this complex is formed on the surface of the zinc sulphide, remaining amount of zinc sulphide, thereby preventing it from the formation of the froth. So the lead sulphide being free will form the froth readily and moves onto the surface, which can be allowed to float on into the adjoining tank, and thereby it can be separated from zinc sulphide ore. So that is the reason why this sodium cyanide when added is combines with zinc sulphide and gave Na2ZnCN4, and this complex is formed on the surface of the zinc sulphide, preventing the zinc sulphide forming the froth. And during this reaction, the byproduct is sodium sulphide, and it is the 4 moles of sodium cyanide that reacts with the zinc blend Zns to give Na2ZnCN4 plus Na2S. And if needed, sometimes activators, instead of depressants, activators can also be added. These activators like copper sulphate when added increases the activity of one sulphide and thereby readily go into oil layer and form froth readily. So thereby adding activators or depressants or adjusting the proportion of oil to water, it is possible to separate one sulphide from the other sulphide using the same froth flotation process.
Hey there, hope you understood the concept. Here's the answer to the question that was asked in the beginning. Keep watching to give an edge to your JEE and NEET preparation. LearnPedia's JEE and NEET prep tools contain over 4,000 videos and over 20,000 questions. You can access them online through our website or offline through an SD card or a pen drive. To buy now, visit www.learnpedia.in. You can also try a free demo of the product before buying.